welcome to Denteamology Live, where we're talking teams and its optimization through great leadership. I'm your host, Dr. Becky Chen, and in this episode, which is episode number 4, I'm super excited to be interviewing a very experienced leader in dentistry, Dr. John. Many of you would know him as the successful entrepreneur who had built Freedom Dental to the reputation that it has today. And then others would know him as more directly as the founder of AORTA Australia. So, John, you might not, well, we were just talking about a little bit earlier, and I was saying that the very first time when I met you was actually at a Smile Styler training. And at that time, I actually knew absolutely nothing about aligners, and I probably still don't know a lot about them compared to, what all the other gurus out there know. But yeah, no, I knew the day I met you, I knew you're a very passionate person and you're very driven. And I think one of the things that, I find in our society these days, we often look at people who, might be highly successful, and then we'd think, oh, that person's amazing or whatever, but we don't realize the blood and sweat that goes behind everything. And so I'm really, really excited to be talking to you today, because I know that you're a very passionate person. You put a lot of energy and effort into everything. So I'd love to know how everything works and what sort of brought you here today.
Sure. No, look, thanks for having me. Looking forward to sharing and talking passionate about dentistry and all things dentistry. So yeah, great to be on board.
No, thank you so much for spending time with me today. I do have to just quickly apologise to the audience. I know we've got a little bit of a technology issue going on, and it's just a little bit of flickering, but hopefully that won't take away the content.
It's the screen, so I apologise everyone. That helps hold me more.
No, all good. All right. So, John, before we start, I think it might be worthwhile for you to very briefly just maybe let the audience know what AORTA Australia is about.
Yeah, look, AORTA Australia is Aesthetic, Orthodontic and Restorative Training Academy. So it started as an idea in 2017. I was actually asked by Bupa and Smile Style at the time to share my experience with clear aligners. And I did a presentation, Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane, to about 200 clinicians across the Eastern Seaboard. And they weren't asking me, what aligner system do you recommend or what do you do here and there? They were asking, how did you do what you did? Because until I got to share my story, I didn't realise what I had done. It was just so normal. We innovated. I got into clear aligners because I wanted an alternative for my patients in the aesthetic realm to not just cut teeth, be able to provide other alternatives. So, we went along and were passionate about this technology. So until I started hearing these clinicians saying, well, how do you do it? The light bulb went off, the entrepreneurial spirit, and to share, the passion to share and give back to the profession went off. So at the end of 17, myself and Dr. George Abdulmalik, an associate who's a lecturer at La Trobe Uni, said, let's start putting these ideas and these principles and these concepts together. And I was passionate about clear aligners being an autonomous learning. And I know I got in early and I wanted to share it, because what I was seeing was opinions that were limiting the potential of the general clinician with clear aligners. And some of the most innovative clinicians around the world have been general dentists. Those that know Dr. Kenji in Japan, he's a general dentist. And we've gone down similar paths. We both jumped in and innovated early on. In Australia, I had to leave and go overseas to learn because there wasn't much support for orthodontists, let alone a general dentist wanting to do clear aligners. So that's how AORTA started. So it's a training and a laboratory service that we provide our students, where they learn the importance of implementing clear aligners as a workflow, how to incorporate technology. Our 3 pillars are systemization, technology and communication with your patient, with your team members and your third-party orthodontic aligner system. It's such a unique facet of dentistry because you rely on the patient. If the patient doesn't wear it, it's not going to work. How do you motivate the patient? How do you keep them on board? How to use technology to interact with them has been the key to our success as clinicians, and how we're helping other providers and third-party aligner companies, not just Smile Style. We help facilitate the engagement of clear aligners in any facet or form. So that's the story. So we've grown to a team of about 6 with a digital lab that services only our students. So we don't take work outside. It's only a scanner, and we do virtual simulations for restorative and ortho simulations what we call virtual smile simulator. We provide retainers and active retainers for people with the 3D printers we've invested in, as well as the software. We also provide do-it-yourself aligners for clinicians who want to white label a Smile Direct Club alternative for their practices. But it's something that we provide only once you've understood the features and philosophies of AORTA. And it's AORTA for a reason, right? I'm amazed how many clinicians miss why we stuck with AORTA. And it's only the reps that hear me talk that get it. The AORTA is the gateway to the heart. And this is about the emotional connection. It's about that passion between us as clinicians and the patient to engage with them. And the period we're in with technology and innovation and selfies and social media means that is more important than ever as clinicians to master this, not just by doing things that sell veneers, but providing a tool that provides ethical, minimal invasive options for our patients and for the clinician to make a more informed decision rather than trying to upsell to veneers, and it's either veneers or nothing. So that's where AORTA evolved, and it's been quite a journey and loving it every day. We've got an international audience. We're training clinicians in places like Vietnam, and books are being sold all over the world. So, I mean, COVID has been a reset for many, but it's really helped catapult AORTA to an international audience, which I never thought would be possible, let alone yeah.
Yes, but it sounds like you're an opportunist too. You've obviously, seized that opportunity and made it happen.
Yeah, I think it wasn't an opportunity. I'll tell you, it was hard work. It was seeing the future. I'm a futurist. I like seeing ahead. So I saw clearly the need to service clinicians and help them. So yeah, I guess I'm an opportunist, but it was for the betterment ultimately of the patient. My why is how I can better service patients. And that's not just directly with the patients, but through other clinicians all over Australia and all over the world. So I think I don't like staying still. I like continue to improve what I do and what we do. I never liked the way dentistry was done. When I graduated in '98 from Melbourne, I didn't like the doctor knows best mentality, and I think that's driven me from the beginning. And wanting to provide that customer service, that better way of doing dentistry and interacting with our patients, and that's taken me on such an amazing journey. But clear aligners fitted that profile for me and continues to help me innovate as a multidisciplinary approach in dentistry. I can't imagine doing it any other way than that. So yeah.
Yeah. So okay, I want to pick your brains a little bit about teams, because you've just mentioned here that you love change and you're someone that's constantly on the move. And I know from my own personal journey, I'm a little bit like that. Maybe not as driven as you, but I'm a little bit like that. And I've gone to that point where in the past I've definitely experienced where change, I was like, yep, let's do it. And then I could not carry and bring the team with me. What sort of things do you do, or do you have any tips, or is there anything that you can reflect back on to say, look, this could have been done differently or better, or this is how that's worked?
Yeah. Your biggest asset and liability are your people, your team. We all know that, and dentistry is significant. The biggest liability I've had is convincing, before aligners actually worked, a team of clinicians, a team of 12, 14 clinicians, that this technology, this approach is going to work. So it took a lot of work, a lot of communication mistakes being made. It wasn't for every clinician or every team member, but it was staying true to that goal. You've got to be a bit stubborn. You've got to be a bit crazy and a bit mad. And I know Dr. George, when he first practiced with me, thought I was crazy, thought I was mad, until he saw the case and saw the software. So you've just got to be obsessed with where you want to be. It's easy to give up. And sometimes it's better off. I mean, you've got to weigh up the benefits. I mean, I can tell you, having this single focus has collateral damage. I mean, it takes its toll when you want to be such a perfectionist and see how it should be done. That's tough when there's 8 rooms running and you're wanting or expecting a certain standard, and how to maintain that standard. So you've just got to lead by example every day, and every time you get knocked down, you get up. So it's having that grit and determination to persist on that end goal, and continually change and react. Try things, may not work. You might try a virtual simulator on one of the scanners that you think this is going to be great, will convert patients, and they come back and the patient's horrified because the simulator's not ready yet. You've got to be ready to change and try different things and learn from them and move on. But you really need to inspire your team as a leader to come on that journey, because none of that can happen without a team that believes. If you've got a team that believes braces are superior to clear aligners, you ain't going to do clear aligners, no matter how good your training is. You need to embrace the team, because clear aligners is one thing I've learned over 4,000 cases. It's a team sport. If you haven't got a team structured around you that believe and will follow their path, and you're delegating, you've got nothing. Because I've seen it in my own practice, in my own experience, where there's a clinician or a receptionist who believes that fixed is better and doesn't believe aligners work because of predated conceptions. You can have the best cases to show or the best simulation. If your team doesn't believe in you, then you've got nothing. So it's important that you bring a team. It's nothing to do with a footy team. We're the coach as the leader. We need to inspire our team to be able to work to our common goal. I guess the match play, the match plan. The morning meetings, all that is about how we want the patient experience to look like and reproduce it each time. Whether it's an implant, whether it's a new patient checkup and clean, it doesn't really matter what you do in dentistry, what you like doing. You want to make sure it's reproducible and scalable to whatever size you want to do. So it transcends aligners. It's a passion and a belief on how dentistry should be done. And I think as a leader, the lesson I've learned is not to not do recruitment. It's the one lesson I've learned over time. I don't recruit, because I tend to recruit people like me. The one thing I need is people to complement my social profiling or personality to be more effective and diverse. And that's what we've grown. We have clinicians that do certain procedures, and we work together and internally refer together. And that's, again, I guess, being the power is to extract every ounce of how we can make the patient experience better within a team of diverse clinicians and diverse valued team members. So I think it's really important to invest and think of the best in each individual. They're going to let you down. They're never going to have potentially the same passion as you, but it's contagious. If you have that passion, people will follow. And I think that's the important thing, is to invest in your team, to allow them to believe in your vision.
I like that. So not just having a vision, but being super passionate about it, and on a daily basis, you're talking about it, you're living it out.
Living and breathing it, and you're acting by example. You can't be a clinician or a leader and never leave your surgery, right? You need to engage and embrace, and it's you need to be in every aspect of the business: the reception, the nursing, the clinician, the therapist. You need to be a finger on every pulse, and make sure that every experience, the patient experience, is to the standard that you believe it to be, and have a team around you. So we're only as strong as our weakest link. So that junior nurse that starts off and makes a mistake, it's easy to blame them and say they're not good enough. It's harder to self-evaluate. What did we do wrong in their induction? Did we recruit appropriately? So I think it's easy as clinicians. We do it all the time. We have a difficult patient, we blame the patient. Rather than self-evaluating, what can we learn from this patient? How can we better service, and what can we do better next time? Because as COVID has shown us, no patients, no dentistry, right? So we have to have a system and a plan to better service them. But sometimes, I've seen clinics that I've helped support, and it's like there's 3 separate rooms. There's 3 worlds working together, and all they do is share the staff, rather than sharing common philosophies and grounds, rather than being 3 separate universes revolving around the clinician. We need to ensure we're embracing a common goal, which is how do we better service that patient. I think that's the key, and that's the leadership key, is to lead by example and and be clear on the values collectively as a team.
So just now, John, you would you were touching on diverse personalities. And I do remember you talking about this in the past in the presentation that I saw. And can you walk us through a little bit? Because is it like a disc analysis thing, or like what do you normally do?
So we use one. I'll tell you how I came about it. I bought into an associate with a guy named Dr. Alan Aylett. Now, Dr. Alan Aylett is still in his 80s. He's unfortunately in a nursing home now, but he used to be the president of the VFL in the 70s. He brought the Sydney Swans to Sydney. An amazing guy. He was a professional footballer while at uni as a dentist in the 50s, played for North Melbourne at a highest level, played cricket for the state, became president of the North Melbourne Footy Club and the VFL. Amazing guy, and was doing this while we're practicing at the practice. And he taught me the social profiling, and he spent a lot of time with a guy named Dr. Omar Reed. He came out to Australia a few years ago. He's unfortunately passed away. And he was an amazing guy out of Arizona who really set systems in place. So Dr. Aylett took a lot of those principles, and one of it was social profiling. But not just how to better service your patient, but how to work better as a team. And it's like the DISC analysis, the same process, but it's the driver, amiable, analytical, and expressive, similar to the DISC process in terms of the way they do it. And it's really understanding that we dominate as two, and as clinicians, we're all analytical, but it's whether we're driver or expressive, or amiable. You can't be expressive as a dentist based on that process. But the idea is that if you know so you can be a chameleon, but clinically, when you're in practice, the concept or the mindset is when you're in that fright, flight, freeze response, the two will dominate.
Yeah, right? That makes sense.
So that's the concept. So it's really understanding the psyche of the patient when they're in that vulnerable position to better service and cater the terminology. So if you've got a patient who's, on TV as a Housewives of Geelong or whatever, and she's the life of the party, she's going to need time to talk, but she'll bite back. She will react. He or she will react and bite back. And then you've got a driver. He or she's a CEO. They're going to be, three solutions. Let's go. But they'll also bite back. So it's a way of understanding the non-verbal cues of a patient or a staff member to better understand how you can read them and better communicate for them. So if someone is an introvert and analytical, they're like an engineer, they're like a dentist. They're the ones that want to know the data sheet. They want to know what's in the composite. They're the ones that want to talk about what material and what the side effects are. You have to go back to your data sheets and work out what composition. They know better than you do. They're on Reddit. They do their research, right? Now, if you brush over and don't give them the data they need, they're not going to come back. But they won't express it. They're introverts. So they just won't come back. Then you've got your amiable patients who just like want to be liked, right? They tend to be more just passive. They're the patient that you've just told them, yes, Miss Smith, you're going to need a root canal in the 3-6. They nod their head, too scared to disappoint you or tell you they're not going to come in. And then next Thursday shows up and they fail to attend. Something always comes up. But once you build a relationship with them and understand and build that trust, they're more likely to be, they'll travel interstate to see you. So it's understanding that and then letting your team better service these patients in morning meetings. So we have a morning huddle, and the word driver, expressive, amiable, analytical are brought up to ensure time is important. We've got a driver and we're keeping it waiting for 20 minutes. Not acceptable without calling. Whereas you've got someone who's amiable or expressive, make sure you're offering a tea or coffee and engage them, make them feel comfortable. So once the team knows how to better service those patients, you're building a relationship of trust, and they feel valued. And that's all patients want to feel. They want to feel. They don't want to feel like they're another number. Doesn't matter what the socioeconomic situation is or where your practice is. They're common human values, and it's a great tool to do that. On the flip side, it also helps you manage your team. If you're a driver analytical, you don't want to drive a nurse working as your co-pilot because that's World War III. And if you want to harm a new graduate's confidence, you put a new graduate with a driver senior nurse, and their confidence will be shattered because that driver nurse will let the whole team know what that clinician has done wrong. So you want to make sure you're complementing your clinician with the co-driver. So if you've got an amiable dentist, and they are some amazing clinicians, but if you have an amiable nurse with them, nothing gets done because they're too nice to offend each other and tell them we're running on late. So you get a great relationship with the patients, but you'll run an hour late. So you want to complement what you're doing and how you're doing. right? So it's a great tool, and the same as a disc analysis. It's I know you mentioned that last time, and I've had a look at it. It's the same. It's just the HR companies around the world trying to put a different spin on it. But that was something that has been around at Albert Square Dental, which is now Freedom Dental, since the 80s, and I just sort of took it on board, and I thought it was something that was valuable in the training that we were doing with clear aligners.
Yeah. So do you would test all your team members, and then do your team members, or you don't test them? You just know?
No, we don't test them. We don't go that far. But in meetings, training sessions, we will present the characteristics and just gently encourage them to start looking for them. We've had these training sessions where, you got to do it as a fun thing, because we've had nurses in tears because they thought they were expressive and their teammates think they're a driver. And a 19-year-old or 20-year-old can get a bit offended by that. So you want to make sure it's done in a lighthearted way, but trying to plant the seed so they understand what they're looking for and why. So it's an art form, it's a skill. It's about reading people's so it's not something that we train them up to a level. It's something we introduce. And in the morning meetings, it makes more sense. They're hearing the word driver. And if it's someone new and if we failed them in their induction, they think we've got Uber drivers left, right, and centre as patients rather than social profiling drivers. So you want to just plant those seeds in the morning meetings. And as the team is on board, some are going to understand it, but it's just a common philosophy and language and repetition that hopefully infuses the culture of the new members as well as the existing members to better service those patients. It's there to help them better. So what's the morning huddle about? To ensure your day is running as effectively and as efficiently as possible. It's not about numbers. We try and avoid the numbers as a team. We've been there and done that. We focus on the quality of service and how we can make sure that every time that patient's in the door that we hit our objective of 6-star customer service, so the patient can repeat and refer, then bring it back to the individual. How can you help that common goal? Because everyone plays a role, from the stereo nurse to the practice manager to the clinician. So that's what the morning meeting is about. And those little cues, what they like on Netflix is brought up. If we kept them waiting, was there complaints about that patient service or the patient made a complaint? We bring that up to better improve and optimize the customer service experience for the patient.
Yeah, I like that. So instead of talking about numbers, you focus more on the customer service and the patient experience and all that sort of stuff.
Right. With a team of 50, on and off over many years now, the numbers are focused on the team leaders, the clinical manager, the concierge manager, and the clinicians individually. Sometimes we've tried a few things, and there's no right solution. But I think if you're going in the morning 7 in the morning meeting, and you're talking to people that has no impact on their quality of life or their experience numbers, it works against you. So focus on how we can collectively leave that day feeling good about each other and having a patient tell us how great their experience was. That is what people come back to work for. That is what drives the common why as a practice. And that's what makes people want to stay and grow with you as a clinician, as a practice.
Yeah. You mentioned the word concierge manager. What does a concierge manager do? Because I've never heard of one with that title before.
Concierge means customer. Oh, sorry, I'm still bouncing around. The screen is still bouncing around. It must have known I was coming on to have that extra bounce. I can't stop it. But a concierge is a term that we came up with about 10 years ago because it was customer service. Their responsibility is the customer service experience for the patient. The clinical team is the clinical experience. So concierge was a term from 10 years ago, and it stuck. So it's not a receptionist. We haven't used the word receptionist since 2001.
So your concierge. So they're your they're your front office coordinators.
Yeah, meet and greet, concierge team. You've got your receptionist. Sorry, you've got your team treatment care coordinators, which are, I guess, a specialised concierge member who will help with contracts and payment plans and support the concierge team. So you've got your non-professional team members clinically and your professional team members, and then you have your admin concierge team. So we've played with this over a long period of time, and I think titles are important as long as there is accountability associated with it. People need to be held accountable, but if you get them excited about their responsibility, and what they own, such as, you know, parking meters are a no-go on your watch. So in other words, we get parking tickets because we're in the inner city. If there's parking tickets, that's a customer service negative rather than being a positive. So they're the sort of things. So you give them accountability, you give them a job description and their individual KPIs as a qualitative and a quantitative KPI. You want them to embrace, rather than having organised chaos where a concierge member goes into nursing and no one's accountable. It's hard because, as we know, people get sick and the team's constantly. You need your all-rounders, but you need to define those all-rounders and define who's doing what, and have a schedule or not a schedule, but an ability for your team members who are starting off to see the hierarchy, to see what they can achieve. Because no one wants to keep doing the same job. They want to grow. Whether it's a junior dentist, therapist, receptionist, they want to see what it would take to get to that next level. And if you don't have that individual training plan as well as a collective training plan, you will lose staff, especially with this generation. I mean, they lose attention in 5 minutes, right? A ping goes off on their social media and you've lost them. I'm not sure what you do with your team members, but we stopped about 2013 or 14 arguing with them about their phones. You want to have your phone on you, have your phone on you, as long as the patient is never affected by you being on your phone. And it completely changed productivity. Completely changed productivity to the point when I remember having a power cutout and the software, the core practice software stopped. They all picked their phones up and kept moving. It was amazing because they had their phones, they innovated, they worked on a solution, and we were running within minutes. Yeah. Right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Me, I was sitting there working out, trying to check the power and the plug and why isn't it working, banging the screen. They said, well, it's okay, I got my phone. It's on the cloud, let's get going. Yeah. So I think you've got to change the rules for the team members, because the rules that applied when I graduated, I wouldn't have dreamed to have a phone on me. Or have the audacity that they're trying to hide a phone in my pocket on me. But we started seeing this trend, and it had a negative effect when we started asking for them to go away. So we flipped it, and it provided innovation and self-reliance on their own. And it's amazing. It's amazing to still see, to the point where if they're running late, they're on the phone, they can work and interact and maintain continuity for the betterment of the.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a battle. We don't have that. I'm actually very fortunate. Day one, we've had that phone policy. It's kept in the locker, and I've never had an issue except once. But I think because I'm in a more regional area, people aren't as stuck to their phones the way people probably in Melbourne might be. But I love it how, you know, you've actually spun that around to make it work for them. I think that's clever.
And it has, and you know, even the clinicians, they're innovative to the point where we're discussing a case and we're not in a computer. It's there. So it's part of their way of life. Embrace that. Right? Same with our patients. That's what they do now. They will search online for a second opinion. Right? Yeah. Don't shy away from that. Embrace that. Use the software. I'm still amazed how many clinicians don't show their patients their orthodontic software. Engage with them, interact with them, because you're going to find a bit more about their expectations. There's going to be a common understanding, and they're going to be more motivated, right? Rather than hiding it away as if, they're going to have high expectations. I would have thought you would have known that before you start, because if they're unrealistic expectations, find that out before you order it. Otherwise, refer it to your favourite orthodontist down the road, because you don't want that patient, if they come in with rulers starting to measure the length, the width of the tooth, or the angulation of the tooth. Right? It's a tool to use for you to protect yourself as much as encouraging the patient. So embrace that technology, embrace that change.
Yeah. So tell me, because I know that you have a lot of invested interest in, you know, like you absolutely love, you know, technology and innovations. What do you think are some things that, you know, we really should be embracing now, and even moving into, you know, 2021 and beyond?
Yeah, I think COVID's made it very clear. I want to make something clear, because I'm not a tech geek at all. I've just surrounded myself with people who are good at tech. I'm a futurist. I see what the patient experience needs to be, and then I surround myself with those that know how to use it better than I do. Believe me, my IT capability is pretty poor, as you can see with the screens still bouncing up. You embrace that philosophy, and then the people with the skills will come. But I think COVID has shown us a number of things that, during the first lockdown, we put all our patients on dental monitoring, and we were able to continue treating them and servicing them. And the second lockdown was a no-brainer. So I think it all comes down to the lesson from COVID is you can't work with our patients. So how do we better service them? The medical fraternity have already gone on to telemedicine. We need to engage on on their level. So we do a lot of online consults where we interact with the patients on their time. So it's a virtual consult. So they're coming in for actual treatment rather than shopping around. So try and break those barriers of communication. Reception rooms, as we know them, are dead. You can't have magazines anymore or newspapers. The ability to ensure a sanitized environment is going to flip the way reception rooms work. I think people will wait outside in their cars. We need to be more efficient. Patients got a 10 o'clock appointment. They need to be in by 10 o'clock because waiting in an environment that could infect them plays on their cycle. So I think the way we set up clinics is being turned on its head, because even the hospital settings will be turned, outpatient settings will be turned on its head, because we need this virus or the future virus or the next virus will have the same impact, if not greater, than what the AIDS epidemic did in the 80s to dentistry, for those that remember. And I remember in the 90s learning at uni, seeing photos of clinicians not having, gloves on, because, they were showing us squamous cell carcinomas or oral cancer and HIV patients. No gloves on, right? Because there wasn't any gloves in the late 80s. So that had a significant impact on what we did as clinicians for the safety of the patients. This will be no different. But we've got the technology to better service our patients, to make that reception area more interactive, to focus on the workflow as being maybe a larger clinic. We have to be more accountable time-wise. We can't have people waiting 30 minutes in the waiting room. Right? Tell me a patient who wants to wait 30 minutes in the waiting room. We had one patient just a month ago where we got to a capacity and stormed out out of fear, right? So we've got a responsibility and a duty of care, because there might be a third wave. The vaccination may work or might not work. This might be our norm for the next few years. So I think the waiting room is going to be needs to be transformed, needs to be innovated. And we need to ensure more efficient appointment creations, using apps, using text messaging, social media, live texting, to let them know when they're going to be in, and they come straight in. Waiting room is dead, right? It's RSVP 2020 for waiting rooms in the healthcare, because we cannot justify having a patient safely waiting in a waiting room. That's why the airline industry has been turned on its head, because they can't ensure our safety, whether it's first class, business class, or economy. They're having to reinvent international flights. We as clinicians need to be proactive. And it all comes back to, how do we better service our patient, and how do we keep them safe? It's a no-brainer. As an outsider looking in, if you're not a dentist, I know this is hard to fathom, but it's simple. You've got to be on time. You've got to be efficient. You've got to interact. Their time is more important than your time. Now, most dentists can't comprehend that term. Their time is more important than our time. That's the future. We have to be efficient and effective to service their goals, not ours, right? Those days are dead. And then technology. What kind of technology? I get asked all the time, and you probably heard me say this when you heard me speak. If I'm setting up a practice from scratch, don't care about the chair, the overhead light. The one thing I want is, how can I best utilize the intraoral scanner to collate data and communicate with my patient? Because that is the untapped future. Like these smartphones we all have, it's not the phone that's critical. The phone's not critical. It's the software that hasn't been invented yet that is going to transform our diagnostic tools. When a patient comes in every 6 months, we will be taking scans. It's just a matter of when. Patients will be sending us scans, right? And we'll be uploading it to an app and getting a report. That is already here. It just hasn't been commercialized. So that data becomes critical. Little Johnny breaks his front tooth. You're not going to try and do your best composite. You've got the scan. You'll replicate nature with a porcelain restoration. Mill it in your milling station. So all of this is based on technology making the patient experience better, more efficient, right? And taking away our skills of crafting a composite restoration is redundant because we can design them digitally, do injectable composite veneers or porcelain. We need to embrace these services and our skill set to make the patient experience better. So we're going to see a massive change. But it's the reception room is outdated, it's online consults, and it's intraoral scanners and the software that's yet to be developed. So you want to get a scanner that services your restorative, your aligner capabilities, but also is an open platform. And that's the great debate now. You got Prime Scan, you got IOTA, you got Trios, you got CareStream, you got Medit, all great, but they all have some sort of ability to try and lock you in. Yeah. So the future is the data, the SDL file, you want it to be free so you can use it in the future any way you want to. And unfortunately, that doesn't exist yet. But it's going to be a fascinating space to see what happens and how we are able to unlock this data. Because at the moment, do you have a scanner, Becky?
I do.
Yeah. So
I've got a Trios.
Trios, and great. I've got Trios, I've got Tero. I've tried half a dozen of them. They're all great. But the problem is they don't allow you to store enough data on them.
Yeah.
And the scans get lost unless you're using a third party. So we're going to see exponential change in the way we incorporate information and data because we're going to become redundant in a diagnostic form. The radiologists are already seeing it. I think we're next. So we need to find better skill set, like setting up software with clear aligners, being able to use technology to better diagnose a treatment plan. Because just because you know what you're doing for 20 years doesn't cut it anymore. You need to be able to use technology to go to that next level of understanding and expertise.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you're talking about scanning, it's always been on my to-do list to train my team members to do the scanning. So is that something that you've probably already been doing over years?
Yes. So it's a fascinating area, right? Because we've gone to APRA and APRA guidelines, and there's no clear-cut guidance on this, right? But we train other practices. You go to your APRA and your insurance, but the intraoral scanner is considered photography at this point in time. So we started with our therapists doing the scans, and now it's our nurses, receptionists, concierge team, or treatment care coordinators who do it. But not for diagnostic purposes, but data collection, taking photos, taking scans. If there is a crown prep or a veneer prep or anything prosthodontically, I will scan. So if I'm making a prime denture, if I'm making an immediate denture, a splint, a sleeping device, I will scan. But we are impression-free. Virtually 99.9% of what we do is impression-free, digital scans. But anything prosthodontically speaking, I will take the scans. I might get my nurse to maybe help me do it, and then when the prep, it's me scanning. I've got to check those margins. Because as a diagnostic tool, I can check on the screen, as you know, with the IOTA, far more effectively whether the prep's good enough or not than trying to look at the mouth. Loops or no loops. I use the screen and then use the technology, whichever brand it is to do it. So the nurses or my team, non-professional team, will take scans when it's a refinement or a patient interested in aligners or just data collection. Patient wants veneers, and I'll take the data to be able to simulate aligners. So it's information gathering. So that's where my team will come on board, and it's about scaling. If you're only 2 or 3 chair practice, for example, it's hard to make room to have a nurse just scanning. But if you get a photo or a consult room, then it becomes suitable to have someone full-time just scanning and collecting data, because it's more cost-effective for you as a clinician to just do dentistry rather than taking photos. And I love amazing courses that people do on photography, but I got rid of our SLR cameras 2015. It was too hard to train the team. And if I'm taking photos, I can't do dentistry. I can't do photos efficiently and productively compared to doing dentistry. So that's where the smartphones evolved. We have that special the lamps that connect, and everything's taken by a smartphone rather than taking SLR cameras. So there's some great technology, but it's using technology to better service your patients. And systemization of dentistry is what clear aligners can do, because you can use You can outsource the data collection to your non-professional team. And then you're spending time as a clinician, as the architect. You're designing smiles, you're developing restorative and orthodontic or both solutions rather than taking photos.
Yep.
Right? Because there's no money in taking photos. Last I checked, there's no benefit to the patient. The patient doesn't appreciate you charging a premium because you're taking photos.
No. Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Yep.
And, you know, if it's a hobby, great. But I can't see how you can do dentistry effectively for your patients by taking photos. So using, again, technology to outsource and delegate to make sure you increase efficiency.
So, John, tell me, if you could, you know, like for a current sort of medium-sized practice, I'm thinking maybe 4 chairs or, you know, that's 4 or 5 chairs type of practice or whatever, what would you say would be the ideal workflow and how would the team assist you for a new patient that's coming in? And also integrating all the technology and like what would the, you know, in your ideal world, how would it fit together?
I would be is trying to create non-clinical chair time. How can I be more efficient? So if you've got a patient who's interested in aligners, right? They're coming for a checkup and clean, and they've seen your poster in the waiting room on the screen and say you do aligners. How do you capture that opportunity? So forget about the logistics of it. Focus on if you're that patient who is interested in aligners, how can you efficiently capture that information without disturbing the dentist workflow, the therapist workflow, the junior dentist? And the answer is, if there's a spare surgery, make that the data collecting room. If you haven't got a spare surgery, make the consult room a photo studio and have a scanner and get a barber's chair so you can take the photos. So it's how you can collect that information without disturbing the workflow. Because if you're having to collect the information as a clinician, it's inefficient, right? So it's creating that workflow. So if you've got 2 chairs running full time and you've got 2 more you want to fill, right? To me, it's a no-brainer. Put your in-chair whitening in one of those rooms, manned by or overseen by a nurse or a concierge team member, or have a scanning room. So a patient has an opportunity, they're coming in and they've come in for a broken tooth, but they're interested in aligners. Why wait to rebook them? Collect that information, create a simulation, and then it's all diagnostic data, and then show them what's possible. Once they see what they want, then fill in what they need. Before we go ahead, you're going to need, it's a marketing tool that generates traffic, because patients don't come in excited on social media saying, I'm going in for my 6-monthly clean and checkup, right? They're engaged on that white smile, that great selfie. How do I get that? And creating the ability not to push it. It's there as a service. So if you've got a stereo nurse, train them up to scan, take photos, be adaptable, because if the focus collectively as a team is a better service to that patient, why not have data collecting on their terms? Because that means the patient is being serviced and then do an online consult. You can break the barriers of accepting the case or treatment because you're giving them what they want on their terms virtually, right? How cool is it for a patient to go to a dental practice they can't get in for 3 months and have information collected that in 6 months' time they're ready to proceed, or they'll come in early if they want to see it. It is to me, it's obvious, but it's changing the mindset as clinicians. It's no different to if I called your practice tomorrow morning and said, I want in-chair whitening. What would your receptionist say?
Oh, well, at the moment we are pretty busy. So yeah, I reckon they would have to have a look and see when the next pre-block is. And it probably won't be for another.
Would they book it in though? Would they book it in?
Oh, absolutely.
Because most places say you need to check up and clean, right? But the patient's saying, I just want an in-chair. I had to clean it somewhere else. And then the receptionist says, no, but you need to be checked up and clean. So that's why in a growing practice, you have the spare surgery set up for an in-chair. And if they need a clean or they got perio or there's a medical reason why they can't, then you're not losing the chair, but you're said yes to that patient, right? Now, if you're busy, it's a great thing to have. But how do you maintain that flow? Photo studio, collecting data, patients interested in aligners, you can't see them for 3 or 4 weeks. What would you do if you were there?
Oh, Well, I suppose, if you're saying I have capacity issues at the moment, John. So like that's a real issue that we're working on at the moment.
Very cool, right? It's a great thing to have. But
Yeah.
it's, I was in your shoes and I've been in your shoes, is how do we grow and sustain momentum? Or are you happy just to peak?
Yeah, no, we're building at the moment, so I'm not happy to peak. We're going to keep going, but but we do have capacity issues at the moment. We do try and squeeze, not necessarily squeeze patients in, but I think our receptions are pretty good, and we're very lucky. Being in regional, we have the luxury of, I guess people don't necessarily expect to be,
Yes.
get it to me right now, sort of thing. Otherwise, I'm going to the next place. I mean, we still do, I'm sure, but that's very rare. So usually we can work them up enough to book them in for something down the track. And we do pre-blocks, so we don't tend to miss out. But all these things that you're talking about is super useful. I think, like even for my future, what I've got in future for plans, because that's definitely something I'll definitely have more than enough. I won't have capacity issues then. Let's put it that way.
You want to make sure you're targeting or harnessing fundamentally what you want to do. Because if you want oral surgery, you'll make room for oral surgery. If you want clear aligners or aesthetic dentistry, you want that. That's the boom area, right? We know globally, aligner companies are predicting 30 to 35% growth year on year. It's huge, right? And it's the team. There's been nothing that I do in dentistry like the team dentistry approach with clear aligners. If you get that rhythm and the cycle and focus on clear aligners as a team sport, it's untapped potential because it feeds in the oral surgery, the aesthetic dentistry, the restorative dentistry, because you're engaging what they want. So as you grow, no doubt in regional area you'll feel. But the question you want to ask yourself is, what do you want to fill it with?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's your choice. And it's the mindset you tell your reception. So once you know the why and the philosophy and what you want to manage and what you're passionate about, your team will do the rest. So that's why that culture and the philosophy you're trying to engage is so critical. Because if you like pediatric dentistry, then facilitate that. If you like family dentistry, then make that happen. If it's a combination, you want to make sure you're attracting the patients you want to be seeing rather than the other way around. Because otherwise, it's not enjoyable. We want to be doing what we love, not what we have to do.
So in your opinion, I know you were talking about dental monitoring. Is that all very much there already in terms of the technology?
So it's very cool. I mean, I was approached in 2016 to try it, and it just wasn't ready. I wasn't satisfied. Jumped back in on 2018. It's getting better. And for me, the untapped potential isn't just monitoring ortho, whether it's clear aligners or fixed, and checking using the AI to check the fit. The untapped potential is how we can track hygiene issues and whitening. When we first had the hygiene module activated, Monday morning, three notifications came up saying there's swelling in your gingival tissue and it's plaque. Those 3 patients called within 10 minutes of that notification. Are these same patients who couldn't get him in for 6 monthly checkup and cleans? But that app, the technology, they jumped to it and said, I've got to get in. The app told me, a plaque. So that potential to help monitor and service patients remotely and almost create appointments on demand effect rather than 6 monthly is going to turn our profession on its head, because patients, utilize and engage technology, apps, all this stuff is going to make their life easier, and they're going to want to embrace clinicians who are embracing technology to better monitor and service them. I think there is a huge, and they're just about to release this dental monitoring as an app. We're beta testing and trialing it. It's fantastic. So to me, this technology is huge. AORTA is a service provider for it. So we have our clinicians who use it because it is expensive for a general practice to do it. But we've created a deal with dental monitoring, and we service practices at a fraction of the cost and use the AORTA portal. And it's a great tool and a great way of monitoring cases and treatment. But is it something that will only get better? Will someone else do something better? No doubt. But when patients are doing clear aligners and they know we're watching, they're more compliant. you can accelerate treatment. It becomes so much better. And then the before and after cases you get on the phone, it's huge. So we're not getting them in every 8 to 12 weeks trying to work out, is this plastic working?
Yeah.
And that one problem, we get them in and react proactively rather than trying to guess when to do it.
So with all this technology, there's obviously a lot for your support staff members as well to juggle, because they're monitoring those things and all that. How do you, because I know for a fact, like from personal experience, when I first started aligners, so many hiccups just within, the team, the flow, and I was like, oh, oops, was I meant to click on the approve button so that the aligners can be sent? Just even something as silly as that. And then now we've finally got it all down pat. But, what is your advice for people wanting to integrate these technologies, and how do you make sure that, there is a consistency of experience for the patient?
It's a difficult one, right? Because those that work with nothing stays the same every 3 to 6 months. There's constant change for the betterment of the patient. So you need a team around you that supports that change, because if they don't support it, no matter how good the technology is, you're not gonna implement it. If you want to get dental monitoring going, it has to be what they call a dental monitoring champion of the practice that engages in utilising this technology for the betterment of the patient. So you need to have someone that's responsibility is to check the portal and advise you of any clinical decisions that need to be made if the algorithms can't be done on their own. So you definitely need to engage the team to implement this technology, any technology. So it's a challenge, but it's a challenge that is only going to exponentially increase, because this technology is not going to get any slower. It's going to continually change what we do at a rapid pace. So scanners will keep evolving. I foresee a patient plugging into their phone a scanner that creates an STL file. Patients won't need to come in. Even dental monitoring now. Once you've got an STL file, you don't need to get it back to a refinement scan. They can use the photography to create the current STL file position with the patient not coming back. So that's what we're dealing with. That's not going to get any slower. That's going to continue to increase. We're becoming redundant if we think the way we do dentistry, especially fixed ortho, is considered the norm. Because patients are going to see this on social media, they're already engaging, and they're voting with their feet. I had a patient today who finished with Smile Direct Club. He had a reasonable result. He wanted a wire in place. Scratching my head why he didn't come to us, but he made a choice, and the result was fine. I couldn't argue with it. It was a relapse ortho case with fixed braces as a team. He knows he didn't wear his retainers, so he was coming to us to do a wire and a retainer. Now, I could have sat there and put my head in the sand and said, sorry, I'm not doing this. I'm not responsible. I'm not going to put a retention in. But his result was satisfactory. So technology is there, and patients are going to go right or wrong and make decisions. We need to help better service them, and this technology will do that. There's no point getting technology that makes your life easier. It has to make the patient's life easier to have value. Does that make sense? If you get a high-speed handpiece that I don't know, slows down its rotations when you say something, that's great, but that doesn't help the patient. Right? If the technology helps the patient, that's your why to implement it, and your team will value that. If it's because it's going to make you more money or make your life easier, the patients, the staff especially, aren't going to buy it. Right? So it's got to be something that makes their life easier, and therefore they're part of this journey of being on the cutting edge of technology.
Yes. I like it. I love it. I love technology. My only fear is people not being able to catch on quickly enough. So, like having the whole team come with me as well is a big thing that I find holds me back a little bit. Yeah.
That's what slows all of us down. Because you can have all these great ideas and great passion for it, but there's no one around to support it. You've got nothing. So I agree with you. And I'm constantly frustrated how slow things flow. But you got to learn to, my team knows, they hold their breath, especially the AORTA team. If I've got a new idea, they know I expect it to happen tomorrow. So you've just got to make sure you're measured in your expectations in implementing this technology. It takes time, but well worth it.
Okay, no, that's great. Actually, I do have one more question, one last question for you. I remember you once mentioning that your team members, they all have an annual goal.
Yes.
Annual
We
goal.
try,
Yes.
it's obviously very hard. There's annual reviews of performance to the managers, and we really try and embrace two types of goal setting. Self-evaluating as an individual, can you scan as a nurse? Do you want to learn how to scan? Can you help with an implant surgery? Individual goals, and then team goals that we set based on tracking our complaints. So we track our complaints as customer service and clinical, and then we evaluate collectively per quarter meeting, what we need to learn, how we can better service our patients, or what's constantly a complaint. So if it's running late, as an example, is that an individual goal for the clinician involved? That's usually me. Or is it a team goal to how do we work together to ensure more efficiency in time, and then giving some goals and some rewards. So that's what we try and do is get engagement with the team member to feel like they're growing. We want them to grow with us, and we want them to help decide their destiny rather than being told what to do. And I think, especially with this millennial generation, we know there's a high turnover, especially nurses. But we know when we've got nurses, they go on maternity leave and come back. They're comfortable, they're happy, they're part of the team. And I think that's, from an HR perspective, a goal that you want to be achieving, because we all know how much it costs to train someone up, or to believe in your values. So you want to, it's not about money. You can throw all the money you like. You're not going to get what you want. You want people who love what they do and come to work because they have a team of a family to come to. That's the objective. And that's part of that approach is to set up the infrastructure to make sure they feel supported, because without them, we can't treat patients. So second most important after the patient is the team, right? We can't do dentistry without them. So I think we've got to make sure we look after them.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much, John, for your insights. It's been very, very interesting to hear about how you integrate the technology and, the innovations and the future of dentistry, and along with, how you can bring the team along this journey with you. Do you have any final words at all before I let you go?
Look, I know, and great social media site you've created. I think there's a lot of practices and clinicians, and I think the one thing that I wish I did more early on was interact and ask for more help. So I think as a profession, we're quite unique. Just make sure if you're having trouble, ask. There's a great wealth of expertise out there that are willing to help. So I think as clinicians, especially starting out, don't be afraid to ask, get a mentorship in different areas, and follow your passion. Do what you love to do, and go for it. There is no reason why you can't do the type of dentistry you want to do. So seek it and find the best you can globally to learn from, but support each other as clinicians. And I think the way corporate dentistry is going, I think the individual clinician, more than ever, has an advantage, but we don't use it to our advantage. Make sure we're supporting each other. And I think social media is a great platform, and your platform, for example. I've always got great insight and ideas. Jesse Green posting something. So it's a great way of sharing knowledge. Never existed when I started. So let's use it to our benefit. And I think what you're doing is helping that happen. So just, help each other out.
Yeah, absolutely. It is all about helping each other out. Thank you, John.
Pleasure.
Thanks for your time.
Good night. Cheers. Bye-bye.